I have a cunning plan to take two of my cars, sell them, and buy one car that does everything that those two cars used to do. But the challenge is those two cars are both very, very different. One is my Mitsubishi Shogun Sport SUV 4x4, and my other is the now sold Skoda Fabia VRS hot hatch. Can I put those two cars together and with the sale of those two cars get a budget and buy something that will deliver what those two cars have been doing? Saving insurance, road tax, maintenance and repairs. This is a challenge I look forward to. Welcome to this week's Fast and Fun. So what did the two cars offer? First up, the now sold Skoda Fabia VRS, the Gen 1. Sold it a couple of weeks ago. That offered three main things to me and to the garage. First of all, it offered some fast and fun entertainment. It wasn't the fastest car in the garage, far from it, but it did offer some pretty useful low-down, in-gear, torquey pull from that PD130 engine. And it offered some memories as well, some brilliant memories now from its relatively short time in the Fast and Fun garage. So, for sure, one on the first requirement of the new car has got to offer something that's performance orientated, and it's got to offer some fun factor as well. The second thing it did was 5-door. So having the ability to have either 4 or 5 doors, rear doors is really important. I want to be able to take 4 adults in the car. The Fabia, in truth, struggled. It was a small 5-door. I want something that is bigger. I want to be able to comfortably get 4 adults in the car, so 2 adults in the back. And the third thing, and probably the best thing that the Fabia did, was usability, daily ability. In other words, having reliability, having good fuel economy, something that's not going to cost you the earth to run day to day as your go-to car. That's where the Skoda scored really, really well. So they're the 3 requirements from the Fabia. Now, what about the Shogun Sport, the Mitsubishi Shogun Sport? Well, we've had a Mitsubishi Shogun in the family, now in the garage, for pretty much the last 10 years. First, we had 2 full-fat Mitsubishi Shoguns for 2 or 3 years each. And then latterly, we've had the Mitsubishi Shogun Sport, the 2005, that we've had now for best part of 4 years. And it's had 3 main jobs. First of all, it's the go-to utility vehicle. Things like the dogs, things like animal feed and bedding, things like rubbish, the utilitarian, versatile, rugged 4x4. The next thing that the Shogun Sports delivered is towing capability. Something that's big enough, strong enough and powerful enough to tow predominantly a horse trailer with 1 or 2 horses in. And actually, I would argue the Shogun Sport, the 2.5 TD, always struggled in that department. We live in quite a hilly area, and it was always a job to have to drop down the gears to try to get as much power out of that Shogun Sport when towing. It did feel right and at times beyond the limit of the Shogun Sport. And the third, and this is the real tricky one, is I need it to be able to go off-road. And that's why it needs to be some sort of 4x4. Now, this is not hardcore off-road 4x4 courses, but it is going off into fields. We own a small holding with animals, I need to do feed, I need to do hedge repairs and fences and just the versatility of driving around a small holding. So 4x4 is important, albeit it will only be paddock and field work, so relatively light 4x4 stuff. So there we go. 6 very different needs and requirements. I've got to roll them together. Current status is the Fabia has gone. I sold that for a good fair price. The Mitsubishi Shogun Sport is yet to go on the market, but will do in the coming weeks. And then with the sale of those 2 cars, I'm expecting somewhere in the region of about £8,000. And I might add probably 1,000 or 2,000 to that to give myself a budget of about £10,000 to get a replacement. And for me, I think something that is 4-wheel drive, some form of, dare I say, SUV. And I know I don't like sports utility vehicles, but an SUV that's a 4x4 that can offer some sort of performance, some sort of fun factor, versatility, towing capability, reliability, affordability. Well, when you're pumping that into Auto Trader, into eBay, into all the other forums, you'll be surprised at what £10,000 gets you. There are some seriously good cars. The difficult market that we've suffered during 2023 has pulled some pretty exciting cars down into the price range. And I've narrowed it down to my 3. One of these 3 will be entering the Fast and Fun garage in the coming months. But the question is, which one? So first up in alphabetical order is the BMW X5. And to tell you the truth, it was the first car. As soon as you say you want a fast and fun SUV, for me, the X5 came straight in there at the number 1 spot. And it was a car, even in its first generation, that I loved. But for my budget of 10k, it will get me into a second generation called the E70, built from 2007 to 2013. And 10k is going to get you right in the middle of that generation. It came, and I'm only looking at diesels, because of that daily ability, that usability. I need to really, the benchmark I've set myself is 30 miles per gallon. That's what I want the cars to be able to achieve. And I know the 3-litre diesel in the X5, the second gen, will easily achieve that. Mid to high 30s. It appears to be doable looking at the research I've done. The 3-litre diesel came in various states of tune, 30D, 35D, the 40D. And not surprisingly or unsurprisingly, it is that 40D model that looks for me to be the pick, because that offers some serious performance. Over 300 brake horsepower, but 440 pounds-feet of torque. That's going to offer this X5 some real fast credentials for what is a 2.1, 2.2 tonne SUV. 0 to 60 is around 6.5, just over seconds to 60. That's really, really hot for an SUV. And the styling. I love the styling of the X5. From outside, there's so little change from this second generation to the first generation. And that just shows you how well BMW nailed it with the first gen look. But this second gen, not just the outside, but even inside, it looks simple, it's clean, it's tidy, it's modern. It looks a really great place to be. You just know the build quality is going to be there. And for on-road driving dynamics, you just know BMW will be right at the front. Not only with that 3-litre diesel power plant, but you know the ride, the handling is going to be right at the top of the priorities for BMW. A few reviews have said it's borderline a little bit harsh and a little bit firm in some situations, which I suppose does worry me a little bit with its off-road credentials. So towing will be predominantly on-road, but off-road, when we're towing into fields and when I'm doing stuff around the small holding, how good is an X5 going to be off-road? And that bit is the biggest concern that I have with the X5. But there's some great points that I've picked up whilst doing my research, and one of them is the engine. BMW was so focused on hitting the driving dynamics of the X5 that they dropped the engine and gearbox as low as possible and put it as rearwards as possible to get that centre of gravity as low as possible to aid on-road handling. And that's the type of car that I want to be buying and driving. 10K will get me about a 2010-ish plate car, so sort of 13, 14-year-old car. And if it's the 30D tune, which has got 232 brake horsepower and over 380 pounds-feet of torque, I'm a little bit concerned that that's going to feel a little bit asthmatic compared to that mighty 40D performance levels, that 440 pound-foot of torque. So I really want to get into a 40D if I can. 2010-ish plate with 100-ish miles on should bag one for about 10K. So second up is the Land Rover Range Rover L322. So this is the third generation of the Range Rover, built from 2001 to 2012, so for 11 years. And it's the classic old school boxy Range Rover that we've all grown up loving. For me, the diesels, they started off with quite a wheezy 3-litre diesel, but through its midlife, it had the 3.6 V8 turbo diesel. And then in its last few years, they moved that to the 4.4 litre TD V8. And it is that one that I want to get into. That offers huge performance. So it's pretty similar on power to the X5 at just over 300 brake horsepower. But check this, over 500 pound-feet of torque. That's an incredible 700 newton meters of torque to accelerate, well, what is a heavy SUV. I mean, it is the full-fat SUV, coming in at around 2.6, 2.7 tonne. The L322 was a bit of a bruiser, a bit of a heavyweight, 500 kilos heavier than the X5. That is a little bit of worry about performance and whether that 4.4 will deliver, even with all that torque, will it deliver the performance that I want? As I say, it's not about a sports car, but it is about getting something that can adequately tow and give me a bit of a kick and overtaking potential when it's needed. You just know with the classy looks of the Range Rover. For me, the L322, before it was replaced by the much, much more modern-looking L405, which was the fourth generation Range Rover in 2013, where they became more rounded and just more aerodynamic looking. This was the last of the traditional shapes. In fact, it's the one that Jeremy Clarkson and Harry Metcalf have talked about many times, about their love for this particular type of Range Rover. If they like it, well, for their farms, then surely it's going to be brilliant for my small holding. The good thing about the 4.4 TD V8 is fuel consumption, because it's widely regarded that I should comfortably be able to get into the low 30s for this car. That is an incredible feat to offer that sort of economy in such a big heavyweight car. I just think towing's going to be a breeze, and I just think the elegance, the look of the L322, it just looks class. I think the inside, They just look wonderful inside. You're just going to feel like a lord and lady driving that car. There is a few nerves around, is it going to be too luxurious and not enough sporty? And incidentally, I don't particularly like the Range Rover Sport. So if I'm going for one of these, it will be the full-fat, all-encompassing Range Rover itself. But how sporty? Is it going to be too big, too high, too wallowy through the corners? And even though I know the trade-off there is it's going to eat my fields for breakfast in regard to its off-road ability. But the biggest worry of all these is that the running costs, the ownerships, is using this as an everyday car, reliability. And that's the big black mark against the Range Rover. You just read on some of the forums that these are absolute money pits. You will be penniless because money will just hemorrhage from your account trying to run one of these, especially as a daily driver. I know Land Rover were fragile in those years with the build quality and the difficulty with the Range Rover. The L322 is a hugely complex beast as well. Am I just potentially stepping into something here that is going to be a complete money pit? So what will 10k bag me? Well, really, one of the last of the L322s. So 2010, 2011 plate should get me one. TDV8 probably will have 100-ish thousand miles on the clock. But although you can buy them for as little as 2 or 3k, the way Range Rovers have plummeted, and I mean plummeted in value over the last 12, 18 months, means that I can get a really, really good top-end L32 for my budget. And then finally, at number 3 is the Porsche Cayenne. I know, before you're shouting at me through the TV screen, I haven't gone mad. Yes, I agree, it was the first diesel-powered Porsche. We all absolutely hated them. We laughed at the comical looks of the front headlights and these high-rise Porsches. What are they doing? They don't know what they're doing. Why are Porsche doing this for? Well, it was quite simple. The Porsche Cayenne saved Porsche, enabled Porsche to continue to manufacture cars that we absolutely love. And it constituted for about half the sales were through the Porsche Cayenne. And if there's one company above any other that knows how to build a fast and fun car, it's got to be Porsche. And so, in the classifieds, in that £10,000 budget, there is some tasty-looking Porsche Cayennes. Now, there's not many diesel options. In fact, there's a whole plethora of Gen 1 petrols, but when it comes to diesels, there was only one, the 3-litre TDI, which on paper does sound a little bit asthmatic with its power output of a mere 237 brake horsepower. But it does recover something there with having 410 pounds-feet of torque. Now, that is less and substantially less than both the X5 and the Range Rover, but it's not as heavy as the Range Rover, and 0 to 60 is claimed at somewhere between 8 and 8.5 seconds to 60. Now, that's not necessarily fast, but it's not slow either, and for a big 4x4, I think that's probably acceptable performance. And now, having lived with these looks, these first-generation looks from 2003 for 20 years, they are start of warming to me. And I had one on the channel only less than 2 years ago. I test drove the 3.2 V6 petrol. Again, not particularly quick, a little bit unrefined, but once you get up close, once you start looking around these cars, both inside and outside, they look much better in their flesh than they actually do on picture, on photos and on videos. So I'm giving Porsche a little bit of leeway here because they do offer some stupendous value. And you just know, reading the reports, the ride, the handling, the steering, the braking, they're all scoring top marks. And I just think if this is about driving pleasure, this has got to be on the list. It has to be. Comfortably can carry the adults. It can comfortably carry the dogs. And the utilitarian view of getting the back seats down and putting other stuff in there, towing, I think should be okay. Very similar to the X5. The big concern is how many Porsche Cayennes do you see trundling through fields? Truthfully, not that many. But it will bag me one of the very last, a 2010 3-litre TDI V6. And there's a lot on the market. So one of the last first gens, and I just got a funny feeling that one of these last few of the first gens, they may just prove to be more resilient in regard to depreciation as well. Around about 2009, 2010, which incidentally means that both the X5, the Range Rover, and now the Porsche Cayenne, all three that I'm looking at, all around the 10k budget, are all about the same sort of year, around about 2010. So that's it. That's my three. The X5, 3-litre diesel. The Range Rover, 4.4 V8 diesel. And then the Porsche Cayenne, 3-litre TDI. What will happen? I don't know. The Shogun Sport is going to go up for sale. The Skoda Fabia VRS is already gone. I will be buying one of these three. I want you to comment below. Tell me, what would you buy? What do you think is the best of these three? And if you cannot, because you think I've made a fatal flaw, then drop me a comment that says what you think should be on the list. There's all sorts of cars, from Touaregs to Q7s. There's just a plethora of large SUVs. But I think these three are the closest to my match. There we go. Hope you enjoyed it. As always, if you did, please thumbs up, subscribe, stay tuned. Another video next week. Thanks for watching, guys.